All right, welcome everybody. Good afternoon. We're starting a few minutes late. Thank you for your patience. Let's get going. My name is Danielle Ball. I'm a librarian in the Business and Economics Department at Los Angeles Public Library. Thank you for joining. Our presentation topic today is advertising and AI fundamentals, how small and medium-sized businesses can use digital advertising and AI to grow. The library has co-organized this program with SCORE Los Angeles. For those of you who don't know, SCORE is the nation's largest network of volunteer business mentors. They provide free mentoring to entrepreneurs and small business owners. So please check them out. At some point, they are a great organization. I'm going to be presenting or introducing our presenter in just a moment. As always, I just want to go over a few items. Firstly, we are going to be recording this presentation, so feel free to relax. You don't need to take notes because this presentation will be on the library's YouTube channel for you to rewatch, and we'd love for you to do that and also to share the presentation with anybody in your network, friends, family, colleagues that missed today's program. Also, we welcome your questions. You're going to put your questions into the comment box. You'll need to be logged into your YouTube account to do so. Throughout the presentation, our presenter is going to be addressing your questions as they come in. So please, at any time, feel free to put those questions in. Any questions that we don't get to during the presentation, we will go over at the end. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our presenter for today, Andrew Barrow. Hi, Andrew.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, thank you. All right, so Andrew Barrow is the founder of Revenue Arc, an AI-driven advertising consultancy focused on programmatic media and modern marketing technology. Over his career, he has worked on digital strategy and campaigns for brands including Verizon, Universal Pictures, Hulu, and the Home Depot. Today, he focuses on how artificial intelligence is transforming advertising, helping organizations use data, automation, and AI-powered media strategies to reach customers and drive measurable growth. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it to you, Andrew, and see you in a bit.
All right, sounds good. So yeah, my name is Andrew Barrow. I am the head of Revenue Arc. And before we get into anything, my background, all that jazz, I do want to take a moment to kind of reassure everybody here. Advertising and AI are kind of fundamentally misunderstood by the general population. It's kind of viewed as like this scary, very complicated thing that's like either here to take our jobs or advertising is so complex, nobody can handle it. And there's a lot of mystery around both. And that also is why I'm here, is to kind of do a little demystification. So yeah, so let me start. So a little bit about me. Again, my name is Andrew Barrow. I run Revenue Arc. We have been in business for going about 3-4 years, but I've actually been in advertising for about 30. Don't let the age fool you. I actually built my first website when I was a child and integrated for early AdSense technology. And so I've literally been in the industry since the 90s, and I've seen it evolve quite a bit. During that time, I worked in things like programmatic, which you'll get to learn, and search, social, video, TV. I've worked on, as mentioned, a slew of different Fortune 500 accounts. At this point, I think I've worked on about a third of the Fortune 500, and I currently build and run campaigns. Even myself, no one in our company is kind of left to kind of sit on the laurels. We're all hardworking people, and I actually still manage budgets myself. So just diving right in. So here's what we're going to cover. One is the big picture, digital advertising, kind of the fundamentals here, the channels, AI fundamentals, and kind of putting it all together so that you have a good understanding of what is AI, how it can impact your business from a marketing lens, and then also what advertising can do from a digital lens. So let's dive right in. So obviously, why digital advertising? Everyone's there. It's just kind of a well-known thing. At this point, it's kind of the entire budgets for most of advertising have moved online. Of the $1.17 trillion, that's trillion with a T, that's spent globally, 73% and actually growing is spent on digital. That's why you have behemoth companies like Facebook, or now Meta, and Google, or now Alphabet, being worth trillions and trillions of dollars, because so much of money goes through their pipes every single day. About 2/3 of that budget is spent on mobile, because most people, even globally, will exist mostly on their mobile devices. As we all know, we're on TikTok, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're searching things, we're using ChatGPT. We are effectively addicted to our phones, and that is where we spend most of our day. But there's actually some good news in this. Average campaign, if it is done well, should be measured on a 5-to-1 return. So for every dollar you spend in advertising, you should expect to see $5 returned in the form of investment, in the form of orders, in the form of whatever. And the great thing about it is, especially about digital, is you don't just reach the masses. So in traditional advertising, you kind of just spray and pray. You run an ad, you're not sure who saw it. In digital, you know who saw it. If you did the targeting right, you're reaching the people you need to. You can start small. Anyone who says, hey, you need to launch with $100 million budget, or anything under $25,000 a day doesn't do anything, it's not accurate. You could launch a campaign for $50. It really does start that small. Now, there are some limitations to that. If you want to run an entire national campaign for $50, it's probably not going to work. Instead, you just want to keep it nice and tight and local. The other thing is everything's measurable, as opposed to the way we used to do it with TV. Is you'd run a TV ad, you put maybe a call-in number, and people will call a 1-800 number and ultimately see that there was a conversion because somebody called that number, and you're assuming that they saw the ad. This is that we can literally see the person convert in real time, and then we can trace that back and drive more conversions that way. So here's what I wanted to first start with is the jargon. There's a ton of jargon that you're going to hear throughout all advertising, and this is kind of a good way of kind of demystifying that part. So one thing you'll hear is called a CPM, or cost per mille, or cost per thousand. There are so many digital impressions, or every time an ad is shown is called an impression, that is just impossible to do a cost per single impression. So we do in batches of 1,000. So that's the cost basis. You're paying in batches of 1,000 views of an ad, which is called an impression. And so it doesn't matter if it is unique. It's not 1,000 unique people. It could be one person 1,000 times. It could be 1,000 people once. It's all counted the same. The next thing is cost per click. That is effectively your efficiency driver of the people who clicked on your ad. And not a lot of people do. I'll get to that in a minute. But of the people who did click your ad, how many of them ultimately, how much does that cost? That's another way of looking at it. You also see something called PPC. That's typically what a lot of search ad agencies do, and that's price per click. Same thing. And then there's CTR. That is click-through rate. That's how many people saw the ad and ultimately clicked. Now, those things on the left, and then impression, like I mentioned, is every time an ad is shown, whether or not it's unique. So everything on the left, these are great canaries in the coal mine. These are great ways of going like, hey, is everything healthy from a top level? But it won't actually tell you the true story, because typically most people don't click. Sometimes the CPMs might be high because you have a very unique target. There's a lot of things around it, but that gives you a good, like, hey, this seems about right. Like, are my costs per click above $1? Is my CTR below 0.08, which is the actual benchmark for too low? And then is the CPM above 100? That means it's way too high. So that's a good stance there. And those vary based on industry. And I can follow up with anybody who wants it on the kind of the industry benchmarks. Now, the ones on the right, those are the ones you should care about. Conversions. This is a digital conversion. So it's not like, hey, was there a sale? It's whatever you want to measure. That is where you should be starting. So how much of that measurement, of that measured conversion is ultimately leading to some sort of return on my investment is called a ROAS, or return on ad spend, or ROI. That's for every dollar you're spending, how much are you getting back? It should, for a successful campaign, be at minimum 5. Anything above that's great. Anything below that's not necessarily healthy. Anything below 3 is considered unhealthy, and you probably need to look at what's going on. Then there is your audience or targeting. That is who you're reaching out to. And a lot of times people will start with something very broad. They'll go, I just want 18 to 90-year-olds or something like that. You should try to drill down to what's considered your unique personal target, your ultimate target. Like, I want people, like if you're running a bookshop, I want people who are avid book readers in this zip code, because that's the zip code right around my bookstore. That is a great target to start with. And you saturate that enough times that you feel like you're reaching that audience. And I'll get to how you do that in a second. And then ultimately they convert or see a conversion, such as how do I get to the store, such as let me order a book online, what have you. And then there's retargeting. This, a lot of people misunderstand retargeting. They think it's some sort of game where advertising networks will just run ads and they'll try to get people at the last second who are going to convert anyways to see an ad a second time. But it's not. It's just gentle reminder messaging of, hey, I know you're on the website. Have you thought about buying the product? Have you thought about making an order? What have you? So that's it. If there are no other questions, I'll keep going. And there's a slew of other jargon that I can walk you through it if anyone has any questions. So as I said, traditional versus digital. So traditional, billboards, print, magazines, radio, TV. That has an upfront rate. You pay upfront for it. You reach everyone, whether or not they're relevant, as long as they were tuning in, looking up, turning on, or reading, they're being reached. Some of them are nearly impossible to change once they're live, such as print. Billboards take months. Radio can be swapped in a day, same thing with TV, but still, it's not in real time. It's not as it's happening. That's the advantage of digital. So digital, search, social, video, display or banner ads, and email. All of those different forms, you can see what's happening in real time and you can make adjustments. In fact, most technology will make the adjustment as it's happening. They'll say, hey, I saw this person convert. All right, let's change the targeting up. This person converted. Yes, we're targeting these 20,000 people, but they really look like these 5,000. Let's target them a little bit stronger. So there's a lot of tools that I'll get into that are like that. The other thing is you can target by location, interest, intent. Virtually every single, and this is going back to 2008, most advertisers have had virtually every single piece of information on everybody, despite what everyone says. You can target based on that. There are some restrictions with some of them. For instance, you cannot run any discriminatory targeting, but you can do some pretty strong targeting for, like, I want everyone who owns a Prius that was made in 2005 that currently lives in Los Angeles and has an income between $80,000 and $120,000. We can get that. I mean, that'd probably be like only a handful of people, but you can get that. Now, the one thing you don't want to do is overly target. You're like, I want these 5 people. There's not enough information to really figure, is that the right target? You might keep it still a little broad so that the computer or algorithm has room to play. So there's that. You can see what actually drove calls, foot traffic to your store, sales. All of that is achievable inside of digital, not so much within traditional. And then the other thing is, as I said, you can adjust or pause in real time. You can say, hey, this is working, or hey, we blew through $50 and nothing changed. It's like, we don't want to burn through the next 500. You can pause it right then and there. You don't have to wait. So that is the advantage of digital. Another thing, 3 things digital does that nothing else can. As I said, precision targeting. You can get really, really, really specific. The smallest group you can target is 50 people. That's just the general rule of thumb, according to what's called IAB, which is the governing board that runs all of digital advertising. If you're virtually everybody, every website, every ad technology has to go through IAB verification. So as long as they run on one of those verified platforms, they're going to be doing something that's privacy compliant. So you don't have to worry about that. The other thing is real measurement. You can see it. And the other thing is totally flexible. You can turn it on, you can turn it off. It really doesn't matter. So that is something that digital can do that virtually no one else can. So I want to take a step back. I want to talk about how advertising kind of actually works. So you first choose who sees it. You kind of set the group, and that's called your target. You set the budget, 20, 50, 60, 2,000, $100 million. Doesn't matter. Whatever it is per day, you're just going to set that. The auction picks the ad, and then ultimately it's shown. So what actually happens, and this is somewhat complicated at the top level if you just hear these statements without understanding kind of an analogy, but it's like a stock. There is effectively a trading market that is called the exchange, an ad exchange, in which all this is taking place. So there's a handful of major ones. Meta has one internally, Google has one internally, then there's the open public ones, which are kind of the rest of the internet. And so how it works is I have an ad budget. I want to target a person. I target those people. I'm going like, I need these people. On the other side, the moment you land on a website or you turn on your TV and start streaming something that has an ad, or you load up YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, the moment the ad is hit, there's something called an ad call. That sends a message to what's called the exchange. It says, I have this ad impression. Who wants it? And then everyone else on the other side reviews it. This is millions, millions, and millions of advertisers. As long as it's kind of within their targeting, they all review it. And they'll go, yeah, I want it, or no, I don't. And then everyone bids. And everyone has a maximum bid. And then whoever has the highest bid wins. And that's virtually it. And then the ad is, then they say this person won. And they take the, let's say Home Depot one. They take the Home Depot ad and they show it to you. That happens billions and billions and billions of times every second throughout the world. It is just basically the engine that powers the internet and effectively makes internet, social media, YouTube, everything you think of that has a plugin into it and has access to the open web free. This is how we've been doing it. And there's a lot of power to that in that you can be very, very, very targeted. So next is the digital toolbook or toolkit. We're just going to be going through kind of the different layers and your different options. So one is there's three main things, and we call it, I called it here, just discovering you, comparing options, ready to buy. In the advertising realm, we call this awareness, consideration, and conversion, or sometimes retargeting on the bottom. So the awareness layer you need. A lot of people say, well, you don't need that because it's not going to drive a lot of conversions. It's like, yeah, but no one knows who you are. So they're not even going to convert. They're not even going to research you. So this is just, hey, some social media posts that you're boosting, or you put a video on YouTube that you're going to share, or you're running some banner ads. No matter what it is, this is kind of your first touch. And so this is where they first discover you. This is where we call brand recall inside of advertising realm. We go, yep, they know who you are. They at least know you as an option. The next thing is comparing. So if they're in market, for instance, they're in market for a new car, they are comparing all the different potential options for that car and all the different potential dealers, and maybe it's also different car companies. That is consideration. That's where you want to be showing them, again, YouTube and social, but definitely retargeting. Then once they're ready to buy, and this is kind of the lowest step, you do Google search. This is where Google search does really well, retargeting, and email. If they go to your website, they fill out, hey, I want to learn more. Your email marketing is going to do wonders for this. And the benefit is that all three work. The downside is a lot of people judge them on the same level. Don't. The best way to judge it is for ready to buy, conversion, cost per action, or CPA. Go, what was the cost? Did I make a return on my investment? What's the ROAS? What's the ROI here? This is a great one to just look at directly. How many conversions were driven? Comparing option, same thing, maybe a little bit less. It doesn't have to be as strong. The discovery option, don't judge it based on conversion at all. Do it based on what was your reach? How many people did you reach? And you can do that by impressions, and there should be some sort of like uniques or unique views within any of the digital dashboards. Did you reach the number of people you wanted to? Or was it all going to one guy? You need to make some adjustments around there. Most, as it says here, most SMBs or small medium businesses start at the bottom because they're just starting out and they have some existing traffic. That's a great place to start. But if you really want to scale your business, it's the other ones that you'll need. So that's that. So Google search. There's a lot that goes into this. So some people might do some sort of emergency thing where they're saying like emergency plumber nearby. That's one intent. Another intent was, hey, I was just in an accident. Another intent might just be a general search, like, hey, what are some good Filipino restaurants near me? Stuff like that. So they're already in market. You can kind of see they're at that real bottom layer. They just are trying to figure out what is happening right then and there, and you can kind of capture them at that point. It's really local friendly. Like you can target down to your zip code, down to that. If you use the most advanced tools, you can down to like 100-foot radius around your location or certain locations. It gets really targeted, and the results are virtually within a day. They're the only platform in which you'll see very quick results, and it's because people are already in market. Now, if they're not in market, or even if they do see you and you don't have the branding awareness at the higher level, they're not going to necessarily convert. They'll see you, they're like, I never heard of that. Oh, I heard of this guy. I'll click him. That's how most people do it. Most people are not searching up your website. They are searching you up on Google. So that is Google search. The next one is paid social. So paid social is great for kind of all the above. So it's great for conversion because it's very engaging. People on Instagram will just click, hey, I like that t-shirt. They'll click right away and they'll buy the t-shirt. But it's also built for kind of like, discovery. If you're targeting the people right and you're like, hey, I ultimately want to reach these people and I have a very visually engaging ad, and this ad is so pretty. People are just going to kind of fall in love with it just from a visual standpoint. That's why it does really well kind of for this middle level. And then kind of the highest, and also the targeting is insane. You can target virtually anyone for anything if you use the right tools for it. And they're not always in the platform. That's one thing I do want to mention is all the things I'm saying, you might need specific platforms. It might not actually be the platform you use. Sometimes it actually is working with another person or another group that can use additional tools. They're somewhat complex, but they can really dive into the targeting in case Facebook says, oh, we don't target that group anymore. What happened? Thanks. The other thing that's great for is just with general awareness as well. People are scrolling through TikTok and they see your ad enough times, they'll start recalling it. Display and programmatic. So programmatic is like social. Somebody says, hey, I'm on Facebook. They see the ad. They know that they want to buy that person. The exchange made. Programmatic is that everywhere. So it could be they're on Hulu, they are on Tubi, they are on, that's for video, they're streaming something on YouTube TV or on any of the live streaming services, or they're streaming old content or Pluto or anything like that. That's like streaming. And then you also have display, which is like you go into CNN. Most of those banners are all bought programmatically. So all that happens there is, again, somebody has an ad impression, they see you show up, and then all these people bid on it, and the highest bidder wins. And that's all. And the great thing about that is it does do some pretty strong brand building if you're running something like CTV. You're running display, it's good, but I would actually argue the better one, going through this, would be CTV. The great thing is it's pretty cheap to get reach. So whereas like a LinkedIn or any of the other social platforms, the CPMs or cost per thousand ad impressions can get a little expensive. But in terms of reach and impact, it actually is one of the more powerful tools. So you could run TV ads, which gives you legitimacy. If you're running on programmatic, no one's the wiser that it's like, hey, this is run through programmatic. It's not run through a traditional TV buy. And it was significantly cheaper for me, and I'm targeting you specifically. Nobody has the context to go, this was a programmatic buy versus this is a traditional buy. It's all the same to the user. So the other thing is you can run something called native, which is an ad that looks like content. It's like, here's the top 30 things sponsored by blank. They go onto it and they see top 30 SaaS solutions or digital software solutions of like accounting, and you can make yours number one and then list others, and then they go, hey, at least I'm going to click and learn more about you. And again, CTV and YouTube and video, insanely impactful. It gives it a ton of legitimacy. We have run, our entire industry has run these studies long term about this. There is this idea in almost every single campaign that if you don't have any video assets and you're not on CTV, there's a limitation to the trust that they will give you. So now if you're a small restaurant, that's fine. It's not a big deal. Your Yelp ads, your sort of other social media ads will do great. But if you're selling a service in which somebody's handing a lot of money over to you, or it's a car, or it's something that really means that visual appeal, video is going to be there. It has that sight, sound, motion. There is an emotional response to it of some kind. Again, super targeted, and it's TV without the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars price tag and upfront commitments. And again, email and retargeting. Email is great. Like, I think that is one of the most underrated things in all of advertising and all of marketing is email. In email, if it is done right and it is done using a retargeting method, so somebody signs up for yours, you're not just buying a list. And for the love of God, don't buy lists. It's always has a pretty bad, devastating impact if people mark you as spam too many times. It does this way of retargeting a person in which it's like you're directly talking to them. And people convert. It's why mail for so many years survived, even though there was TV, even though there was radio, even though there was digital. Mail only recently started dying off because people stopped checking their mailboxes often. But in reality, mail, if that didn't occur, mail still would be pretty strong, and email has that same impact. So how do you choose which channels? Do people search for what you want? Is there a visual, strong emotional response to it? Do you have repeat visitors? Are you building a brand or a bigger story? These are all things you kind of have to consider. So if you're like, hey, they're already searching for it, definitely Google search. They're already in that's where you should just start. But if you're like, hey, they don't even know who I am, I'm launching a flying car company, it's like, okay, well, you have to start, you're probably gonna have to start a little bit higher in educating somebody. So let's do video, because that's gonna be strong. And let's do some retargeting messaging and some email to get them to understand why this flying car is going to do great. Or is it like, hey, I'm trying to get somebody into the cultural movement around what we're doing? Well, again, video, but also native. It really kind of depends on what you're trying to achieve, and you have to kind of start there. So where does AI fit into this whole thing? And I'm sure you've seen everything that is AI. A lot of people talking about this is the best way to do AI. This is the best way to do AI. The reality is, and same thing with marketing, is as much as I'm educating you here, there is no silver bullet. No one has a formula for exactly what to do with AI and prompting or typing it into the AI chatbot, or an exact solution for, hey, this is ultimately going to work for marketing. If anyone had that silver bullet, they'd be a trillionaire and they would retire and all of us would be out of business. But in reality, it's still a lot of guesswork. So what AI is actually doing in advertising is it can basically take what you've built and recreate it for different environments. So you can create ad copy for it, which you should review heavily because there's hallucination with it, where it kind of goes like, hey, you told me you're a plumber. Well, here's a bunch of plums. Like, that's actually happened before. Or it's like, hey, you're a plumber, and you said like, hey, don't tell anyone about my rates. Great. Here's all the rates. Like, it will misunderstand what you're saying and actually start broadcasting that. So you have to definitely go through it. But it does great when you're like, hey, I need to generate some quick imagery. I don't want to just use like standard stock images. I want to take this and make it a video. It can take everything you have and amplify it. One of the best things about AI is it takes what you're doing and amplifies it. However, AI, as I put here, is not a magic button that runs the entire business. It's not a magic button that runs marketing. It is an amplification of what you are. You still have to guide it on what you're doing. So you have to have that tastemaker mentality behind it. Virtually everyone you kind of know are already using it. The number of AI tools that you see and interact with is actually quite large. You might even be using an AI tool and not understand it. Search, for instance, Google search right now is powered by AI. So it used to be powered by something called web crawlers, but now it's completely powered by AI. So if you use Google search, or if you use Yelp, or if you use any of those things, you're already interacting with AI. 82% of all small businesses have already invested into some sort of AI tool. Now, this could be anything from, hey, we have a ChatGPT seat and we're just investing a lot of time and energy into it and not necessarily capital, or we've been playing around with it. But virtually all small businesses at some point have, in the last 3-4 years, have interacted with AI and started building some of their business around it. Now, 93% of marketers create content faster with AI. What they really mean by that is that only really the top tier guys can create content faster. Most AI that is produced content is at equal quality level to what a mid-range producer can produce, and at a much faster clip. That said, it doesn't mean you have to replace, or you should replace, your marketing team or the person who's coming up with your creative. It just means that they should be using it to move a lot faster. Typically, you'll see magnitudinal changes when a team starts using AI as an amplification tool. Basically, they're like, hey, I want to use AI to do this a lot faster. This is where it really starts impacting. So good at creating content, better at when it comes to all the bids that I was talking about. It's like, hey, I know this person works. Like, let's target them a little bit better. Just great with that. Personalization. So instead of running just one general ad to a bunch of people, you could start creating the ads to be a little bit more in tune to who the person is. I wouldn't necessarily make it creepy of like, hey, I know you're in this zip code, but you could target it a little bit better. And you can use AI to take your existing feel and flow of your ad copy, that's the actual text, and you can change it based on the neighborhood you're targeting. And they can run 13 different versions of that and figure out what's the best. And that's kind of what I'm really trying to get at here. As I said, 93% of marketers feel they can create content fast with AI. And the 81% feel it's led to some sort of brand lift in sales. That's accurate. It's wild how fast AI kind of come up, but because you're running multiple different creatives all at once, you're able to increase sales. Now, and it's not going to be dramatic. It's not going to be like, hey, we turned on AI and immediately started making 100,000 times what we were making before. It's just more if you can move faster and try different things, and then you'll see that lift. So what I would recommend is, take a week, write 5 different, the text for 5 different ads. What I would recommend is going through a lot of the chat models, the chat bots, and kind of seeing what it would do to your existing setup. And if it feels wrong, don't do it. But if it does feel right, use it. The best thing it kind of envisions here is, okay, we want 10 different versions of the same ad, works. I can do that in seconds. Same thing with video, with ad copy, with visuals, with anything you can think of. It's much, 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 much faster because you're like, hey, I want my drink, I want it to be instead of this way, I want it to be this way. Or instead of the person holding in their hand, I want it to be on the table. That's where AI kind of really sort of shines. Again, the different tools right here, ChatGPT, which virtually everyone knows about. There's also Claude, which is incredibly great when it comes to developing content, when it comes to developing decks. Gemini is also pretty good, especially when it comes to ideation. You're like, hey, I need to have this idea, I'm trying to figure it out. You can use that one, and Gemini is powered by Google. In terms of images and design, I'm sure you guys have messed around with Canva, but there's also Adobe and Midjourney. Midjourney is the Midjourney, and there's another one which is called Stable Diffusion, are the highest ones that do incredible work. They'll take your kind of existing ads and they will make them absolutely shine. Video, they can take your images, and this is where you kind of have to know what you're doing. Is with video, it's still in its infancy, but you can turn text and literally into video. You can do text to video, or image to video, or video to video, where you're saying, I have this like small little clip, can you make it 30 times longer? You can do all of that. This is the one where you really do need to rely on an expert, though, because it typically takes 5 to 10 minutes to produce the video, and it takes a really long time, and it takes a lot of patience. So the other thing is a lot of things like you'll also see AI for performance. So one place you do see this a lot is Advantage Plus with Facebook, or Performance Max. Those don't have any transparency around them. So Performance Max, you'll see in Google, is like, run on PMax, or run it through our extended network, or whatever on Meta. those you have virtually no control over where it goes. And anyone who's recommending you to do that, that's a great red flag. That means they don't know what they're doing. Because if you've been in the industry long enough, you know that those networks and those places have a lot of problems. They'll run your ads on content you would never be comfortable with. And there's virtually no way to stop it, no matter what they say. So that's something that I think is, I don't get to this in a minute, which is working with a marketer. That's a red flag. If they're really recommending PMax, or if they're really recommending Advantage Plus. The other thing is you still need to protect your private data. You can't just upload everything to it. In fact, Claude will tell you, please stop doing that. They'll be like, please stop giving me your personal information. You always want to have a human check. You want to make sure it's still you, your voice, kind of how you talk, how you feel. You do not want to use the AI default because people have that initial reaction against it and it'll actually prove negative. So you want to tweak what you're saying, not replace. And then you also want to disclose it if you're using AI generated imagery where it makes sense. Like, hey, I created this with AI, great. Or, hey, like it's a slight difference. You don't necessarily need to disclose it there. But if you're literally straight up using just pure AI, you should disclose it so that the user is comfortable and trusts you because you are being upfront about using the AI. So where to start? First, you have to start with yourself. Before you reach out to another team or you're like, hey, I want to pull in a bunch of people, you might want to try it yourself a little bit. Take a really small budget, $50, $100, something like that. One offer, like come up with your own kind of ads. You're not going to negatively damage yourself forever. Run that ad. Maybe it's on Meta, maybe it's on Google search. Just test it. Use the AI again to come up with a couple of different iterations. Just see what you get. And then you can get a pretty good understanding of who your audience ultimately is. From that, if you're like, hey, I ran this on the back end and the data said my ultimate target, for this card game that I'm trying to sell is actually ironically 50-year-old mothers. And it's just like, okay, great. Now you know you're kind of your sweet spot. And so that kind of is where you want to initially start before you start reaching out to experts. So there's two main paths of how you can do this. You got to do it yourself, DIY. This is great if you really don't have a big budget. If you have any budget smaller than $5,000, $10,000 a month, this is where you should start. Once you get into kind of that range, then you should work with a team. But in that range, it's great because you can kind of learn who your customer is. You can change things around. And again, like I said, the cost is time. Like I say here, the cost is time. Mistakes are kind of the lessons you make. It's not this idea of you're burning through hundreds of thousands of dollars and bankrupting your company. That's kind of where you want to be playing an agency or a partner, or even hiring someone like internally to do it. Typically, they're experienced. They might not know your specific industry, but they know a relative one that they have worked on. They can just turn it on. They have access to the most high-end solutions possible. That's when you kind of work with an agency. Some green flags, they're asking about your business, about your goals. Everything they kind of explain to you is very like, oh yeah, I get it. You keep ownership of the ad accounts and the data that you have, or it's leased, but it's not owned by them, or there's a method of clawing it back. They show you where the money goes. They're not just like, hey, give us this money. Don't worry about where it runs. There's a lot of sketchier platforms like, I'm not necessarily going to here because I realize this is a little bit more of a neutral playing ground, but there are some players in the ecosystem that are very, very difficult to work with because they're completely black box. Don't work with those. And then they have real references of clients you can call that they currently have, or again, past employers you could recognize, or they have like hundreds of thousands of, hundreds of employees at minimum. Some major red flags, it's all jargon. There's no plain answers. They're trying to pressure you to close right now. There's a huge upfront commitment of like months and months and months of money you have to lay out. There is no full explanation for the novice to understand where the ad money is going. And there's a guarantee of performance. Guarantees of performance are an insane red flag. A lot of agencies do it. Typically, a lot of agencies overseas who are looking to rip off people. They're like, oh, you have to spend this little bit of money, but we guarantee you there's this. No one can guarantee anything in advertising. It's impossible. You just want somebody who's like, here's your budget. Here's how we can make our money. And that's it. The other thing that you want is a complete disclosure of how they're making their money. Like, you need that upfront. Otherwise, it's typically not a good situation. A couple things to avoid: trying every channel all at once, going like, I'm gonna run on search and Facebook and TV all at once right now without trying anything. You need to be spending a minimum, if you want to start doing that, $100 a day per channel. Then you can kind of start experimenting with more channels. Typically performance, even on search, depending on the complexity of your offering, doesn't do well within a week. It takes about 2 weeks to really start seeing performance. 2 weeks, you might see a conversion or two after a few days, you should. But typically it's conversion after 72 hours. Within 2 weeks, your ad should pay for themselves. Within a month, it should be generating you money. That's kind of the way of viewing it. If you're like, hey, after a week, it's not immediately making it rain, don't worry, it will. It's a little bit of a hockey and a compounding effect, but you just need time. If you can't, you have to track everything. So if you don't know how to track it, talk to somebody. It doesn't matter who you need to talk to. Just talk to somebody who can ultimately help you track the conversions. Make sure your creative stands out. It should never be written in an AI voice. You're trying to get the attention of the user without going crazy. And again, you do not want the AI to run without any kind of oversight. So a couple things. One is all your customers are already online and looking online. That I'm sure you already know. The fact that you're small actually helps. You can be a little bit more nimble. You don't have, you're kind of reporting to yourself, or you're reporting to one boss or what have you. You can experiment a lot more without worrying about a lot of brand damage. You can start with small budgets, and you can only pick one channel. Like, start $20 a day, $50 a day, whatever it is, just to test it. AI is kind of a democratizing event in all of advertising. So if you really get to know it well, you can perform just as well as the big guys. And then the other thing is, please start small. You should really think, I'm okay with losing all of this money just to experiment. That's a really great strategy and thought process when you're going into advertising. So there's that. So that's it. You should try it. Like, honestly, I implore people enough to initially try it, get that understanding. If you have any questions, my email's there. I'm not going to pitch you or anything like that. It's just more like, hey, I have questions. Feel free to ping me, and I'm more than happy to explain. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. That was great. I was just thinking back to the very start of your presentation, talking about the traditional media. I loved the show Mad Men, of course, like many people, and the amount of investment going into one ad campaign, and then it could totally flop, right? So yeah. I loved the, comparing it to what we have now, which is, kind of instant feedback. So that's, thank you for going over that. So let's go ahead. So folks, let's go ahead and put your questions into the comment box. Feel free. We have a few minutes to go over questions. I'm going to get started with some questions right now. All right. Can you explain pay-per-click advertising? Is it expensive? I know you kind of mentioned it in one of the earlier slides where you only pay if someone clicks on it. Is that, yeah?
Yeah, so pay-per-click advertising is a little bit of a misnomer. A lot of people are like, oh, great, I only pay per click. You're not. That is just the measurement of performance. You're like, hey, I'm going to bid a maximum. You're like, hey, I'm going to pay up to this much per click. That is how you can set it up. But typically, you're optimizing it to try to get towards the cheaper level. It can be expensive. Typically, a lot of the people who run like PPC accounts will charge quite a bit to manage it. So that's where it gets costly, not necessarily the budget. The budget you could be running for like $50 a day.
Okay, great. All right. Other question. How can I purchase a banner ad on a website or app? Do websites or apps choose which ads they run? So like, I think practically, how would you approach someone and say, I want to run an ad on your, a banner on your website? Do you just go to them directly?
No.
Can they, okay.
So the best way to do it is if you're like, hey, I want to buy a KTLA, for instance, or anything else. What you can do is you actually go to one of the platforms. There's one that I would actually recommend for, especially for the novice, is StackAdapt. It's a Canadian firm, or Basis, or Adform. Those three are really great for like newcomers who are like, or even like honestly advanced shops, to just go, hey, I want to target this, and then you have to work with them, and they'll tell you like, this is how you ultimately just target this one website or this one app. But you can do that. It's called there is a thing called GP, which is guaranteed placement. You basically go, I want to buy this many impressions on these apps. That's it. It's not necessarily the most efficient thing. The better thing to do is to work off of what's called a PMP, which is a private marketplace. That says there's these lists that's listed. Not every website in the universe. It's just a very small list, maybe 200 to 500 different websites and apps you're okay with running on. That's what I would run on. I wouldn't specifically say one website because you don't know also what their traffic's going to be for your targeting.
Right. Just as a follow-up, are there, if you as a small business don't want to run your ad on like a specific type of website just for your own like values or something like that, can you tell those to like stay away? Okay, you can.
So that's where it gets a little weird. So if you run on what's called a PMP, yes. If you run on, that's where I was warning against PMAX, they will have tools in there that say, I don't want to run on this because of my values. There are several, this is where it gets kind of complicated, several legal cases that got settled at the to push forward a couple of mergers that happened in the industry last year. Unless you specifically do it yourself and you, as the individual, dictate to your agency or you're a marketer, don't run on these websites, by default, they will run on those websites. There's virtually no way to stop that. With the last administration, they were very adamant on undoing what's called brand safety. So that was undone. The other thing is if somebody says, oh, you won't run on anything nefarious, they're lying because those tools actually don't work. And there's several lawsuits right now actively against 3 different companies. One of them is Double Verify, IAS, where they're like, hey, we scan a website and we do all this. It turns out they can't. And they're currently in litigation with an insane amount of investors. So I would avoid anything that says Double Verify or IAS. And they're like, you can run everywhere. Don't worry about it. Worry about it.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Very complicated.
Yeah. Sorry. That one is a little bit more.
No, it's good. That's what I wanted, we wanted to know. So, but it's a lot to think about. All right. Next question. What types of online ads are a waste of time or money? I don't know if you can really say this, but yeah.
I can. So this one is, as I said, PMAX, Advantage Plus, anything that says we'll run on an extended network. They have no control of that network. So that's one. The other one is, I cannot emphasize this enough, anything that is a cost per install, unless it's specifically with Apple. So if you're running it with Apple, it actually does halfway decent. It's not great, but it does okay. Other than that, it is a nightmare in terms of where that ad runs. You have virtually no control, and all those websites are scary people. I can't necessarily mention the names, but there's some almost trillion-dollar companies out there that are based on fraud, like literal ad fraud, and are on investigation by the SEC quietly. I would avoid anything that's like, we're going to do a cost per install. Cost per click is fine if it's on search. Don't do it anywhere else. It should be CPM. Running on anything that's where we run on the open exchange or open internet, red flags. Don't run there. You might just end up running on a website that's powered 100% by robots.
Okay, great. And just in terms of like platforms, I mean, just your basic, you touched on, Google ads. It's super important, and that's free, right? Google getting yourself? No. Oh.
Yeah. So Google Ads, they have a minimum spend. It's 50. It might be $100 a day.
Okay.
But Google, when you're doing it on, it's not that any platform. Well, there are certain platforms I can't mention, but there are specific. If you're running Facebook, and they're like, don't worry, just run it ever. Be specific. I want to run on Instagram. Otherwise, you'll run on who knows.
Okay.
Google, YouTube, search. That's it. No, don't run anywhere else. And that's where I would recommend is you can run on a platform, but you have to be very specific about where.
Okay, great. You mentioned email, using email. I'm curious, is there a program to manage email advertising?
So there's two. If you're going to be running email advertising, you can go to any, you can go to the stacked apps, the Basises of the world. They'll have an ability to target email ads. So it's literally ads inside of your email. The other, or if you're running an email campaign, what you can do is you could use virtually anyone. You can use Constant Contact, which is by I think it's Salesforce, and then you do MailChimp. You could just like, and I'm not saying just Google it, but you could just Google it and find like a litany of partners, and they're all good.
Okay, wonderful. So folks, there's still time to send in a question. One more here. Let's see. And I don't know if this is a simple question or hard, but what is considered a good ROA, ROI? Does it change depending on how much money I have to spend, if I'm small or big, or
it shouldn't change based on the amount of money you spend. Something that a lot of agencies, that's a huge red flag, is, oh, you would do much better if you just spent more money. There is some truth to that, in the sense of if you're spending anything under $100 a day, I wouldn't expect your ROI to be super strong. After $100, it should be at least $5. $5 times the like good. Great is anything over $5 is great. Anything under $3 is stop. For two reasons. One is practically it's not a really great idea. From performance marketers will always say that they're always aiming for 5, and 3 is significantly below that. The other reason is it also doesn't make sense at that point, because you're spending so much money on just advertising your product. You're probably actually, when you add up all your costs internally, probably losing money. So just keep that in mind. That should always be absolutely above 3, but ideally above 5.
Great. Thank you for that. Okay, so we are just about at time. And if there's no other questions, Andrew, thank you so much for being with us again. It was super interesting. Folks, remember, those of you who are watching, that this presentation will be here for you to continue to watch or to share with other folks. Also, the library, you can see behind me, I have some books on AI and advertising. So there's a lot of resources out there, including, Andrew's expertise, but the library, and also SCORE, which I mentioned before, and I'll just put up their URL real quick. So again, this is the organization. It's nationwide, but it's a mentoring network. It's free mentoring for small business owners and entrepreneurs. And so that's how I was connected with Andrew through SCORE, and he's involved with them as well. So lots of awesome help and resources out there for you. So again, Andrew, thank you so much. It was great. And if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and sign off for today. All right. Bye.
Yeah, thanks.